Welcome back to another episode of Charge Collective, helping you become the best version of yourselves through tools, stories, and truths. I'm Lane Storia, and today I want to be touching on a subject that I touched on last week's podcast about a little tool that I've been using over the last 12 months that's really helped change my life a lot. And tomorrow we'll be diving into this a lot more in a group call as well. So for those of you that want to jump into that, that'll be at 6:30 on Wednesday afternoon. But today I just wanted to touch on health, wealth, and happiness. I know I touched on it in the last podcast briefly about how it's changed my life and how I really want to help revolve this movement around health, wealth, and happiness. But today we want to do, I just want to do a bit of a deeper dive into what the true meanings of health, wealth, and happiness are and how we can look at that and mold our life around that. So the first one I guess we look at is health. And I don't just look at it as like physical health, I look at it as physical, mental, and emotional health. So the three pillars of health that we really need to look at in deeper ways. And I think there's a lot of people that might be physically healthy, but they might be struggling with their mental health or emotional health. So yeah, I look at that as one basket there. And for the sake of things, I really want to look at these as buckets as well. So say you're looking at a well and you've got your well, and you're tipping the water into your buckets and you've got your three buckets. So you've got your health, wealth, and happiness buckets. And I think if one of these buckets ever goes empty, it really starts draining from the other two buckets. So it starts sucking water from the other two buckets. And I'll explain why later on. So yeah, so we just talked about the health bucket and now we've got the wealth bucket. So wealth it's not just all about money. I look at wealth as like time and freedom as well. So we go wealth with money, time, and freedom in that as well. And then we go happiness, and happiness is joy, connection, and purpose. So I think it's really easy to just look at like health, wealth, and happiness and think like physical health, money, and happy. But I still feel like there's deeper meanings to those. So when I was talking about one bucket becoming empty and then the other two buckets having to feed into those buckets, this is what I talk about. So let's just say with your health, and it can be physical, mental, or emotional. Say one of those buckets starts to go empty. You might start losing your health in a way, and then that then drags down your wealth and your happiness as well. Because even though you might be wealthy and you might have lots of money and time and freedom, but if you don't have your health and you can't walk around, be happy, you can't be mentally healthy either, that's going to start dragging it. Like you're going to start losing wealth anyway. You're not going to be able to perform the way you're performing, which then leads into your happiness. You're just really not going to be happy anyway either. So that's one way that health really affects the other two. And then we look at wealth, and I feel like if we lose our money, time, or freedom, then that's eventually going to impact our health and happiness as well. So the way that I look at this is, say we do lose our wealth, so we might lose our time, our money, or our freedom. If we lose that, we then start looking at other ways that it can impact our health or our happiness. So let's just say we lose our money, and that then leads to losing our time because we've got to work more. So if we're working more, so we start working instead of 8 hours a day, we start working 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day. And then we don't get to go and do these physical things of which might improve our health, like going for a walk or a run, which helps our physical and mental and emotional health. Then we start looking at how wealth has impacted a way of our health. And then the same thing if we lose our wealth, then we might start getting other stresses. So we might start losing our time, and then that then affects our happiness. So we might be working more, which then affects our happiness. So that's the way that wealth affects the other two. And then our happiness. This is something that I've really, I wouldn't say struggled with, but it's been quite fascinating to realize about me because I am such a happy person. But I think looking at happiness as a deeper meaning between those connections and our purpose. And I feel like the underlying one for me is purpose. But say we do lose our joy or our connection or our purpose, I feel like the other two really become, it doesn't really matter how healthy or how wealthy you are if you're sort of living a bit of a miserable life. And I think that ends up chewing at you a bit as well. Like you might be okay for a couple of years, but then deep down you still feel that missing of purpose or connection or happiness, which then I feel might lead you down a bit of a spiral of sabotaging your own health or sabotaging your own wealth as well. So there how I look at how each one can impact the other two. And for that, I started looking back at my own life about how different stages of my life, and I'll explain to you now how I looked at it. When I first heard about this about 12 months ago, I thought that's a really good concept. And then I started looking back at different sections of my life. So obviously when I left school and I started working as a tradie, I would say like I was very happy. I was going out and I was just having a good time with my mates all the time. Like we go out and we drink and we party, and I felt like it was a very happy lifestyle. I don't know if I might have been fulfilling a purpose, but I had a lot of joy and connection in my happiness. But then I sort of look at my health sort of suffered because I was drinking so much. And then my wealth also suffered because I was also going out and drinking so much. I was spending so much on different things that I didn't really need. So that's just one little section of my life. And then I would look back at probably when I made the big transformation and I sort of started diving into doing physical feats a bit more. So I started training for my 36 half Ironmans. And I was so driven on that. I was like, right, yeah, I'm just going to like put all my eggs in one basket, and this is going to be like my big thing. Like I'm going to be known as the guy that goes and does big endurance events and raises lots of money for charity, which was really cool as well. Like I will never take this back. But I sort of, when I learned about this health, wealth and happiness, I really look back, and even though I was definitely the healthiest I'd been in my life, like I was eating all the right food, getting all the right amount of sleep, doing all my working out, like I was working out 25 hours a week. But then again, I sort of look at my wealth and my happiness sort of suffered. Because I was putting so much time into my health, I was only working part-time at that stage. And I really sort of wasn't focusing on money at all. Me and Tay were lucky enough to be living at her parents' house, so I was paying very minimal rent. So I really wasn't trying to worry about building up my wealth. So that sort of struggled with my wealth, but then I also look at like money's one factor of that, but then my time and my freedom. I really didn't do much apart from train. So I didn't feel like I had much freedom there. And then the happiness as well, like as cool as it was during the event where I had a lot of people around, the 6 to 8 months before that where I trained 25 to 30 hours a week by myself, most of the times, I sort of felt like I really lost a lot of connection and a lot of joy and a lot of purpose because it was just me training by myself. So that's one way that sort of got pulled back again. And then over the last sort of realization I had was when I just got back on the tools. And obviously I'd just been from being so healthy. And this is when I really started to learn about health, wealth and happiness. And I sort of started figuring out like, okay, how do I'd been on the tools for about 3 months at this stage when I'd learned about health, wealth and happiness. And I was looking at my life at that stage. And I wasn't really the happiest I'd ever been. I'd started making money again, so I was building towards my wealth. I was like, okay, I want to get back on the tools so I can get a good income and go back to the bank and start borrowing more money to buy another rental property. And that was like my sole focus. I was like, right, I'll just get in, I'll get out for 6 months, like get in there for 6 months, get a property and get straight back out again. But that turned into a bit longer, and I also feel like I lost my way while I was on the tools. So once again, I was sort of, during that time I was working over in Stradbroke Island, so I'd leave home on Monday morning at 4:30, and then I wouldn't get home till Friday afternoon at about 6:30. So all week I was pretty much, like I stayed at Stradbroke by myself, and then I'd have trades coming in and out throughout the work days. And I felt like I was very peaceful because I was by myself and I was going down to the beach every day, but I lost a lot of happiness because I didn't really have a lot of connection. I was spending a lot of time by myself, and I wasn't really making those friendships that I sort of really love to do. And then my health, I sort of, because I was working 10 to 12 hours a day, I really was like, oh, I'm working hard and it was hot. And I just gave myself a reason like, oh, don't worry about going out and training all that time. So then again, my wealth being so my main focus affected my happiness and my health. So that's just one thing that I've really started to break down about, okay, how do I feel? And it's not like filling all three buckets up at the exact same time, but it's like, how can I sort of fill one bucket up without letting the other two buckets go empty? So that's one thing that I really want to look at now, and I really encourage you guys to look at and sort of think, what buckets are you ignoring at the moment in your life? And it comes down to many different things. Like for me at the moment, and I've sort of changed and I've really been focusing on this in the last 12 months, where I sort of feel like my health is really in a good place. So I've started putting really good habits in around my health and I'm training a lot better. My wealth, I've really started to improve my money standings and sort of my understanding on money. But then my happiness, I'm very happy, but I feel like I'm lacking connection and purpose. Just moving up to the Sunshine Coast, it was a big move for me and Tay. We don't know anyone that lives up here. So it's really started just to become just something new. Like we've only been up here for 2 weeks and I'm still trying to get out and around the community as much as possible. But it's been surprising. Like I really thought it'd be easy to get up here and just like click with people straight away. That's sort of normally what works best for me. But I've been trying to put myself out there a lot and go to different run clubs and different gyms and everything, but I just haven't felt that click yet. So for me at the moment, I sort of feel like I'm lacking connection and purpose. Whereas I encourage you guys to sort of look at those three buckets, and I'll repeat them again now. So your health, wealth, and happiness. And in your health, you got your physical, mental, and emotional. In your wealth, you got your money, time, and freedom. And in your happiness, you got your joy, connection, and purpose. And I'd just love for you guys to have a look at those three buckets and just sort of sit down for 5 and 10 minutes just to think, okay, how are those buckets looking for me at the moment? And what can I do to make those buckets fill up a bit more? So yeah, that's what I'm leaving you with this week, guys. If you think that has helped you at all, or you think it could help a friend, please share it around. And till the next time, I'll catch you then. Cheers.